Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to add my welcome after a couple of years. It's good to see all your faces out here. Great to be back in Las Vegas again. I was very heartened to watch the panel presentation a few minutes ago and talking about monetization, and I think that's a critical concept. I will warn you in advance, I'm not going to get into nappies and dog food. Okay, I'll leave that for the panel. I know, I'm going to leave that one alone. But I do want to talk about new revenue streams and delighting customers. So, see if we can drive this. So, my dear friend Mr. Wonderful reminds us that the only reason to do business is to make money. Okay? And not only once does he remind us of this, but twice. And so it's very important. We continue to hear about in ATSC 3 talking about the additional possibilities for delivery of data, and we're going to get into that as we progress. So within the U.S. currently there are 59 markets that are now live with ATSC 3.0. That brings us the immediate benefits of a new user experience, the broadcaster app that is designed to provide that localized branding and individuality of the broadcaster. Also enables us to get 4K UHD and HDR content. But more importantly, from my perspective, the broadcasters can increase their revenue by additional utilization of the broadcast spectrum. All right, and we're going to cover briefly some tooling that's required in order to enable that. And so we'll cover such areas as non-real-time content, multicasting, advanced advertising that we continue to hear about, the dog food and the nappies. And one of the areas that's very important is the dynamic bandwidth allocation and core network integration. So the new user experience is really focused a great deal around HDR and UHD content. That's a given. And that happens primarily in the linear broadcast. But then also we're afforded opportunities of the advanced advertising, targeting the content specifically to the individual user, as well as the multicasting. And so we'll get into the multicasting in the forms of data casting, which is likely to be a different concept that you're really not familiar with. It's well outside of the traditional concept of linear broadcast, and it's very easy. If it's not linear and it's data and it's going out, it's data casting. Okay, so it's all things which are not the linear broadcast, and so that presents a unique set of challenges within the broadcast facility, being able to control that and schedule it and get it out there to the receiving devices. And speaking of those receiving devices, where are they? Right? With the integration of core networks, being able to get that out into the handheld devices as well as the living room becomes incredibly important. Sorry, bear with me as I'm managing paper. So one of the areas that we can look at things very differently in the area of data is the concept of smart cities. Okay, this is no longer about broadcasting linear content. This is about pushing data out to the edge. Things as interesting as streetlights, being able to have the multicasting opportunities to deliver the command and control signals out to the streetlights, as well as, for example, retail, getting the non-real-time content out into the kiosks within the retail facilities. when we talk about the multi broadcasting, it's very important that in that multicast, it's contrasted to what's typically done in cellular technology, which is a unicast. It's a point to point. Whereas in the multicast, we're broadcasting out to several receivers concurrently. So it's a much more effective and efficient use of the spectrum. And so the kiosks where there are many store locations become an obvious target. Aircraft, being able to share real-time updates with the aircraft as it's taking off and landing. Things such as solar panels and of course mobile phones. We all want to be able as broadcasters to hit those mobile phones and be able to use that multicasting opportunity there. And we talk about IoT and edge devices, targeting drones with command and control and updated weather and traffic conditions. All of these are possible with the spectral use of ATSC 3.0 and that blanketing of data out to all of these devices that have the ATSC 3.0 receivers available. And then lastly, we cover automotive quite frequently, being able to distribute map data or the seatback video that the kids are watching in both real-time and non-real-time form, as well as software updates. That's something that's well outside the comfort zone of the traditional thought process of linear broadcasting, but it's all enabled with ATSC 3.0. It's all in there. And the core concept is to fill up that pipe, to pack it full of the ones and zeros, leaving no data behind, so that you're always monetizing, always generating additional revenue. So when you look at each of the cases that we're talking about here, you'll see that there's a common theme of dynamic bandwidth management. Okay, so we've carved out at specific points of the day, specific day parts in the broadcast of the linear content. It may be HD content. We may have to shift gears for UHD content. How are those channels managed? What happens when you're broadcasting the Super Bowl? It goes live, it goes long. You've got to manage the traditional HD channel as well as the UHD content. So we're used to traffic scheduling and managing that schedule, not only from the standpoint of programming, but advertising content. Then operations taking that schedule and translating that into control within the master control environment. So now we come along with the ATSC 3.0 air chain, and everything's going to change because the key within traffic and play-to-air automation is one single concept of time. Everything that we're doing with inventory in linear operations is all about time. Well, along comes data casting, and it has nothing to do with time. And so the scheduling of this is very opportunistic. It's very broad in terms of how we will cover that, and it will present new opportunities in that data casting, when put into the ATSC 3 chain, is highly opportunistic. No longer are we necessarily worried about hitting the specific ad break. Now it's about getting that data out there. And so we're going to find new challenges as we progress with that opportunistic insertion of the data. And continually we want to make sure that we fit into the operation of the station that's used to highly automated operations. We know what master control looks like. Just go down into master control and try and find people. We've got machines covering a lot of the operations and do so very effectively. And the expectation is that ATSC 3 is not going to change that. that we've got to have the same degree of automated behaviors within the broadcast environment, and same degree of effectiveness and lack of error. You know, we don't want to see black on air today in the linear feed. We don't want to see black, the equivalent, in the data casting operations as well. So it's going to require a very different approach in order to manage those data casting and multicasting opportunities. So bring to the table something called System Manager. System Manager has been something that is part of the ATSC standard for quite some time. And this new paradigm, the new broadcast model, requires new tools in order to manage the air chain. It's no longer enough to control the selection of content. Now we've got to manage that chain end to end. And so the individual streams, the components within that spectrum need to be managed. And typically we've got multiple streams from multiple broadcasters leaving that single transmitter. So you can't be stepping all over the other transmission streams. You've got to be very well managed. And we've got to keep stability. In speaking to several folks out there that are bringing these facilities live in those 59 markets, they're quite candid in their comments that right now it's all about stability, keeping things up and running and understanding how the systems operate. But it's not going to be long before the station manager comes along and says, hey, we've got to have dynamic operations. We're starting to sell data casting in that area more commonly. And so we've got to have the tooling. And that comes along in the form of that system manager, being able to monitor, being able to schedule, and control all those devices dynamically so that you can vary the amount of bandwidth allocated for the purpose of data casting, or UHD, or HD. All of that is going to be an everyday occurrence as we progress. So Coherent Logics has been a key contributor in the ATSC. We've had over 50 patents awarded, so we know a little something about System Manager and what's required, and so we're qualified uniquely in bringing that along into the market. So that's something we've been actively working on for about 18 months now, and we see this as a tool that's very important for the broadcaster to enable the additional revenue streams. And so they're not going to be able to effectively manage these streams with the control systems that they have today. We're going to have to bring System Manager into the stations so that we can take the high-level schedules from traffic and automation and allow System Manager to take those and provide the same degree of faultless operations going to air. So with that, thank you all for attending. I hope you're having a fantastic show, and good luck. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask, apart from the hecklers? All right, everything you needed to know about System Manager. Thank you all so much.